In the world of 20,000 Boku no Heroes Under the Sea Academia, hero work is more than just stopping criminals. It's also about designing and using items to support and improve the efficiency of everyday life. The people who create these support items are called support heroes, and much like regular pro heroes, they also have to go to school to get their hero's license, but for different kinds of work. Some might go there to get their license so they can use their quirk freely in their support work. Others might go there to get noticed by support companies and make their fortunes. And then finally you have those who attend schools just so they can create. Hatsume Mei falls into a bit of all three categories and is the pinnacle of what could be considered a support hero in training. Mei Hatsume is a very straightforward and positive type of person, wanting to move past failure and learn from it. And it is this aspect about her character that makes her such a great support course student, though before we get too into that, we should actually discuss the meaning behind her name first. So the name Hatsume Mei is actually a very interesting one. First, of course, you have the fact that her name is comprised of three separate characters that, when rearranged, create two specific words that play directly into her character. And the first one of these is Hatsume, which is a combination of the first character of her family name and the one character of her given name. Hatsume is a word that means invent or to invent, which plays, of course, into her invention otaku nature, as Horikoshi describes her. This is also the reason why Mei was designed in a specific way, with Horikoshi wanting to make a mechanic or tinkerer type character, even originally planning to make Mei male at first, though he decided that she would be more interesting if she was female. Along with this, Horikoshi went for a steampunk aesthetic when it came to designing her gadgets, one example being her goggles, because artistically, steampunk gear and clockwork gear are really useful design themes in comparison to more futuristic or clean looking technology. And this is because the more visible moving parts allows something really simple in nature to appear way more complex when drawn. And this also makes the person who makes it appear a lot smarter. This is also likely the reason why Mei herself enjoys steampunk, as she might view it as the ultimate freedom of imagination when designing anything, even if the results do end up failing. And then next you have the remaining part of her name, which is Mei, which just means eye, and plays into how her quirk is based in her eyes, which is also referenced by the fact that if you place all the characters in her name in the correct order and then read it all out, you get to aim or aiming, which is a direct reference to Mei's quirk, Zoom. Zoom is a rather simple mutation quirk which allows Mei to zoom in on things with her eyes naturally by focusing her vision on a specific place. Though because of this quirk being a mutation, it means that Mei can never turn it off. Zoom is an always active ability, but probably over years of living with it, she's learned to deal with that fact. Also, it being a mutation is the reason why her irises are physically different from normal eyes, with them being based on a crosshair or reticle design, a reticle being a thin piece of wire or hair that is used in optical devices to help indicate scale along with help locate targets, usually used when zooming in on something, so it makes sense why it appears with this quirk. Which makes me wonder if Mei can actually see the reticle herself and if she uses it that specific way. And if Mei focuses her hardest on something, she can see up to 5 kilometers or 3 miles away. With this quirk like this, it actually makes a lot of sense why Mei is so great at making support items, as she's able to work with small pieces or tools rather naturally, since she can just zoom in on a desired location and get a clear look at what she needs without any sort of scope required. Along with this, her quirk Zoom is a great representation of her character, as when you zoom in on something, you actively block out things in your peripheral vision, or you single in on something specifically, and this single-minded focus on one thing and one thing alone is represented by Mei's drive to invent. And like any good representation of a character, it affects her both positively and negatively, as because of her single-minded desires, she ends up forgetting some more majorly important things, like people's names and her client's own safety from time to time. But also, it causes her to never really question if she can or can't make something. Instead, she just attempts to make it, and if it succeeds, then she moves on to the next project, and if it fails, she'll continue to work on it to make it succeed if someone really needs it. And this is because to her, failure is just another step in the creative process, repeating Edison quotes to keep her motivated even in her failures, saying things like, just because an invention doesn't work as intended, doesn't mean that the effort was wasted. And we see this motivation through her actions in the series, as in a single semester so far, she has created up to 202 different functioning support items, and this doesn't include any of her failing items that she might go back to. She also made at least 50 items within the first 4 months of school, and Horikoshi himself has said that Mei is someone you could easily consider an invention otaku, or someone who is invention obsessed. And this obsession is addressed even in universe by Power Loader, a pro hero who runs the lab in which support students go to test out their inventions. With him saying, even though she has a few people issues and she's a little high on her ego from time to time, Mei is a one-of-a-kind inventor. She's someone who is always working in the shop as long as she can, whenever she can, during even breaks and weekends in school. We even see her sacrificing hours to days of her sleep in order to get an invention ready, which might explain why she loves chocolate over other stronger stimuli like coffee or energy drinks, because she probably doesn't like caffeine as a sleep prevention method. You see, caffeine may be a powerful stimulant when it comes to keeping a person awake, though the way it does so is rather bothersome for someone who might want to work hour on hour without being interrupted. And that's because caffeine works as a diuretic in nature, as while it increases your reflexes and alertness, it also tickles that part of your brain that makes you have to use the bathroom. But this is slightly different with chocolate, as it does contain a diuretic as well. It also contains theobromine, which is a much weaker stimuli than caffeine, but also way less intrusive on the person, as it specifically increases your heart rate and suppresses your sleepiness. So it's reasonable to assume that Mei would rather forego the bathroom breaks that come along with caffeine, but instead stay with the less intrusive chocolate to help her finish her inventions. We even see during the school festival that Mei is willing to put off everything to make sure her creations are ready on time. This includes bathing or sleeping, because at the end of the day, all she really cares about are her creations and getting them seen by as many people as possible. And this is the reason why she refers to them usually as her babies, because to her, her creations are a piece of herself in some way. And this passion to the creative process and her desire to keep inventing seems to be based off of a multitude of different things. One of them, of course, being Tony Stark from the Iron Man comics, as not only is Mei's created pretty similar power suits to Tony Stark, but one of the most iconic and interesting parts about Tony Stark is the fact that he never stops inventing. He's always tinkering with his suit in some way to try to make it more compact, more aerodynamic, or just overall better than the last time he used it. And this is because he became obsessed with it in a way, really becoming one of his most recognizable character flaws in a multitude of iterations of him, most famously the MCU Tony Stark. And we see Tony's obsession to create pretty clearly in Mei as a character, especially so when you think about the fact that she was originally going to be a male character with the same gimmick. Though as much as I enjoy Mei as a character, I doubt her importance to the plot of Hero Acca will ever evolve past the point of just designing gear for our protagonists and being off-screen creating tools or gadgets to be used in future arcs, or finally just maintaining her role as sort of a gag character. But if Horikoshi does have plans for her sometime in the future, like with those lines from Power Loader that seem to be foreshadowing at her possible involvement in a future time skip arc if that ever happens, then I can see her being important there. But just overall, at the end of the day, I'm always happy to see more Mei. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/ManyNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to zoom in and examine the details of your own life, well, you can do so at buyshimonetta.com or http://www.buyshimonetta.com.